Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And today, we're going to read from The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty. Probably my all-time favorite meditation book of life. It is the co-sister book of Codependent No More, which is also one of my favorite books of life. Probably next to the basic text of my 12-step program, Codependent No More by Melody Beatty is a book that literally helped me the most and changed my life. So if you have never read Codependent No More, I highly, highly recommend it. And it doesn't just have to be somebody that is codependent, or if you know what codependency is, and she is somebody that kind of coined the term back in the day, and she explains in there how it came to be. And she did family groups for Hazelden, which is a treatment facility, and she has a history of addiction. And anyway, it is so fantastic. And it's really more about how we interact with people. I will tell you that the first 5 to 10 stories in there, or 5 stories, are really about wives to husbands that are alcoholics. But once you get past that, so much of it is relatable. I mean, have you ever read a book, a self-help book, that when you're reading it, it's so helpful that it almost is hurtful or painful to read, because you're like, this is so me. That is Codependent No More, where basically she holds a mirror up to your face, but then she gives you solutions to handle it. And I think that was what it was that, for so long in my life, up to the age of 30, 35, I read the book, I think twice in my 20s. And the second time it so resonated with me. By then I had a long-term relationship. I was seeing interactions with my family, my mother, my father, my stepmother, other people, friends. And I could start to see, my interactions, my relationship patterns and things like that with people, to where I could see that I had a lot of codependent traits in a way that I didn't even realize that I did, and that I validated my existence through other people. And that whether I wanted to admit it or not, it didn't just have to be in a codependent romantic relationship. It could be with a friendship. It could be with, a coworker. It could be with a supervisor, that I really sought their validation and their acceptance in my life. And then it was doing inventory and, being in counseling for years to look at, well, why was that the case, that I, needed somebody's validation and acceptance, And the reality is that today, on the other side of that, I'm still not perfect, but I'm, a work in progress. And I feel better about things. I see it now when it happens, and I can stop it quicker. And I have a toolbox of tools to deal with the way that I interact with people, that I don't seek that validation, that acceptance out as much. That being said, I'm somebody that I think until my last breath, that validation will always feel good to me. The foundation at the core of who I am, of growing up, if we truly do believe that the foundation years of our lives are who makes us who we are, was years filled with bullying, being put down and told I wasn't good enough. And when you hear that long enough, you start to believe it. And so somewhere along the way, I started to believe that. I don't believe it today so much, but I still struggle with that. There are days, there are days that I feel super confident, but then I still look in the mirror and I'm like, no, you know what I mean? And so it's still hard for me. And so I need tools. And if you need a tool, a daily tool, The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty is fantastic. It's a lot about relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, coworkers, family members, a lot about family members. Today's is about responsibility, June 10th, and I haven't actually read this meditation, so I want to read it on here and then kind of give you my response. I have 3 other meditations picked out. Every meditation today that I read up to this one, because I got to this one, I was like, okay, I could make 4 videos today, and I'm not going to. So every meditation I read was so good and so applicable to my life that, there are days that I read the meditation books and just none of it resonates with me. And there are other days that I read them and I'm just like, this is phenomenal, right? So I saw this one and I started reading the beginning of it. It's about self-care. And I thought, no. I'm gonna wait and save this one for video. Responsibility, June 10th. Self-care means taking responsibility for ourselves. Taking responsibility for ourselves includes assuming our true responsibilities to others. Sometimes when we begin recovery, we're worn down from feeling responsible for so many other people. Learning that we need only take responsibility for ourselves may be such a great relief that for a time we disown our responsibilities to others. The goal in recovery is to find the balance. We take responsibility for ourselves and we identify our true responsibilities to others. This may take some sorting through, especially if we have functioned for years on distorted notions about our responsibilities to others. We may be responsible to one person as a friend or as an employee. To another person, we're responsible as an employer or as a spouse. With each person, we have certain responsibilities. When we tend to those true responsibilities, we'll find balance in our life. We are also learning that while others aren't responsible for us, they are accountable to us in certain ways. We can learn to discern our true responsibilities for ourselves and to others. We can allow others to be responsible for themselves and expect them to be appropriately responsible to us. We'll need to be gentle with ourselves while we learn. Today, I will strive for clear thinking about my actual responsibilities to others. I will assume these responsibilities as part of taking care of myself. It's funny because I kind of smirked halfway through it because it reminded me of a situation in my life that had happened when I was actually in graduate school. And when she talks about recovery, I want to make this very, very clear. She isn't just talking about people that are in recovery from drugs and alcohol or another addiction. She's also talking about people that are recovering from codependency. But if you don't relate to any of those things, it can just be for anybody. Just throw the word recovery out when you're listening to them and just be like, okay, this applies to me. But when I was in my master's program, we had to do practicums, internships. And this one that I did was at an elementary school, and I did not want to do it, okay? I totally had no desire to be at this elementary school. And it was really, really far away from me. And it was like I was working with a group of social work students. So there were first year and second year students in there all together. It was like a group, I can't remember what we used to call it, but unit. It was a unit. And there was about 10 of us in this unit. And so we had to be there on varying days. And basically our responsibility, she oversaw us, and then she was kind of like the social worker for the school. And then, and she was one of my greatest mentors in life. And then there was actually a school guidance counselor that she reported to. And so we would do groups, co-groups together, and then we were paired up with somebody else, and we would have to make a schedule. And then that other person and us, we would have to go get referrals from teachers. And referrals are when you have a student that is getting in a lot of trouble, they refer that student to the guidance counselor or to the social worker. I could get into a lot about this, but the way that schools were, public schools were in Indiana at that time, they had what was called title money. And so title money was extra money that they could use on a guidance counselor or a social worker, but they typically didn't have both. So you would have a guidance counselor in the school whose responsibilities were to work on emotional issues, but they were also doing home checks on people because kids weren't showing up to school. This was an inner city school. About 30% of the students didn't show up on a regular basis. So there was a lot, this guidance counselor had a lot of responsibility. Therefore, she handed it off to us, the things that we could do. So I can remember coming in there. Now, I, back in the day, was not self-motivated. And today it's so weird, and I thank this woman because it is all about what she said to me in this moment and what she made me do. That is the reason that I am so self-motivated today. I make lists, I get up, I know what I want to get accomplished that day. Every day I look at my list and I say, these are the things I must do. These are the things, if I get them done, I'll be very happy about it. But I struggled, okay, back then, because I was somebody that, I did very well if you gave me A through 1 through 10, A through F or whatever, but 1 through 10, and these things must be completed by Friday. If you do that, I'm very good at that. I am that kind of employee. And so, I wanted her to do that. She wanted us to be self-motivated, and that was one of the things that she really, really believed in. And so finally, she would come in, and she'd sit at her desk, and she'd be there for an hour or two, and then she would leave, because she had 3 schools that she was supervising for the master's program. And she would come in, and I would say, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And this was literally my first 3 weeks, okay? And she would say, yeah, sure. And I was there, I think, 2 days a week for 10 hours a week or something like that. And I would come in and I would go over there, and there I was in my little polo shirt and my khakis trying to, look like a social worker. And I would go up to her and I would say, can I ask you a question? She'd say, yeah. And I'd say, I don't really know what to do with these referrals and stuff like that. And she'd say, okay. And I'd say, I don't really know, everybody else is seeing people, and we're supposed to do this group, and the girl that I'm supposed to do the group with, she's never here and whatever. And she'd say, okay. And I'd say, well, I don't really know what to do. And she'd say, okay, but I'm not going to do it for you, so you better figure it out. And she'd get her purse and she'd walk out, and she'd say, okay. And I was so worried that I was going to do it wrong. That was the thing. So at the 3rd time, she said, she kind of took her glasses, her bifocals off, she set them down, she goes, Peter, what's the problem? And I said, I'm not used to this. I'm not really good. And it was so funny because later at the end of the semester, she had us all over to her house, and she gave us each a rock. I think it was a rock, maybe it was a card, I don't know, but she had written just one word on it that defined each of us. And the word that she gave me, and this is not me being braggadocious or anything, but this was me at 20, I graduated in 1998, so I would have been, shoot, how old would I would have been? I think I graduated 98 or 99. I don't know. My degree is sitting in the garage. I would have been 26, 27 at the time. But she gave me this word, and the word was authentic. And she said, and she referenced this conversation. She goes, I remember that conversation with you. And I just broke down. I said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I really don't. I don't trust it. Like, this whole situation makes me nervous. I didn't want to be here. I told her, I said, I wanted to be at Riley's Children's Hospital because I heard you got to work with this team of psychiatrists and you learned so much and whatever. And she goes, well, you got what you got, And she looked at me and she goes, and I said, I don't even know how I ended up here. Like, you know what? I got sober, then I wanted to be a counselor, all this kind of stuff. She goes, well, what did you want to be growing up? Okay, this is cute. You ready? And I go, well, I wanted to be a model, like a runway model, right? And she goes, and she's laughing, and she goes, well, why didn't you end up being a model? And I go, because I'm only 5'10", and I think you have to be like 6'1" to be a runway model. And she goes, we do with what we're given. I have remembered that for years. Like, it brings tears to my eyes. We do with what we're given, like all of us are given individual talents, individual things, and just her saying that was so empowering to me. And she looked at me and she said, you can sit here for the whole semester and I am never going to tell you what to do. What you get out of this internship is totally up to you. I'm going to pass you if you show up. What you get out of it is up to you. If you work with another student and you guys go pick some students that you want to meet with and you want to form a group, that's up to you. That's what I would love for you to get out of this. If you don't, you don't, But I'm not going to come in here and tell you what to do because more importantly, what I want you to learn out of this is self-motivation and what you need to get the most out of what you want to get. And then she stood up and she gave me a hug and she said, Peter, I care a lot about you. And she goes, I know you're going to get exactly out of this internship what you need to get. And I did. And I remember I went home that day and then I came home, and I thought a lot to myself, like, I don't know what to do. Like, ugh. And the next day I went in there and I was talking to another girl and she was like, I don't know what to do either. And I go, let's go to the teachers and let's see if they have any referrals. And so she and I started seeing people together and we put this group together. We put this fantastic grief group together around the children's book, The 10 Good Things About Barney. About the cat that passes away. I think it's called The 10th Good Thing About Barney or something. I have the book in my basement. And we did this whole thing where we grew plants. And on the last day, all of our plants that these kids had grown because they had all lost siblings and inner city shootings, we had grown these plants through the whole group, and on the last day we come in and the plants were all dead, and we even had to turn that into this thing, and it just was the most amazing experience of my entire life. Once I stopped going against the grain and I was allowing myself to just be part of the process and trust the journey, I had the most amazing experience, and I'm so thankful for it today, I realized I did not want to work in elementary schools, but, or any kind of school, but it was such a fantastic experience. I met some people that I have known my entire life since I was in there, other students that I was in graduate school with, and that woman was a mentor of mine for many, many years until she was out of practice, and, I would call her up and I'd say, hey, she was like a life mentor to me, I'd call her up and I'd be like, hey, I'm dating this guy and blah, 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 and she basically, gave me free counseling for years, which was awesome. And she's just always somebody that in one word or one sentence could just have it all figured out for me, and I'm so thankful for that. So, I think the thing is that we have to know what our responsibilities are to other people, but not feel responsible to them. And we have to also know what our own responsibilities are to ourselves. But at the end of our lives, infinitely, we decide that, right? So again, it comes back to this idea that life is not a dress rehearsal. What do you want your life to look like? When you are standing at the end of your life, if you have that opportunity and you're looking back, imagine after we're all done here, if we have a moment to judge our own lives or look back, what do you want your life to speak of? Therefore, from that idea, that definition, we can form responsibility that we want to put on ourselves throughout our lives. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that meditation. That was kind of fun to relive that memory again. And I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.